Okay, so welcome to the video giving you some understanding of what we do at the Kilby Center. This is really just for your mind, just so you can think about what you would be embarking on, or what you will be embarking on if you come to the Kilby Center and work with us. The first thing you have to know is that this work is not really about being entertained. It's not about curing your boredom and listening to me motivate you as a motivational speaker, or to turn your life into some positive action. Our work at the center is very deep and transformative, and it's not really about entertaining you. Some clients do come to the center thinking that they're going to be sort of whisked into program after program that's going to keep them engaged and entertained all the time, and really that's not what we do. What we're trying to do is give you some deep transformation in your life so that you can then go out and enjoy your life and be free of the weight of suffering and sense of lack or deficiency that you brought into the center. So I wanted to say that right off the bat, that it's not necessarily a walk in the park to come to the Kilby Center. That doesn't mean that we don't have fun, because we do. We do yoga, we do outings, we take clients to different places, sometimes even to like the liquor store or the supermarket, trying to trigger their cravings and then release their cravings. Or we take them to the beautiful, there's a park right down the street. We let them just lounge into the nice green grass and chill out. There are obviously in Palm Springs nice things to do, like pools and whirlpools and spas and all kinds of things. There's plenty of time for that. Recreation can be a part of what we do, but most of what we do is really deep, transformative work in a very quiet setting, the center, with facilitators and psychologists that are trained to bring about a different kind of realization than you're probably normally used to. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Often we're fed the idea that we have to have a positive framework, a positive way of thinking about our lives. And somehow if we just get the right positive framework in mind, with the right positive intention, great things will happen. Like if we visualize being successful, we will be successful. Actually, there's a place for that kind of thinking. And I think it has a place in the kind of work that we do. But most of all, what we find with people is that it's hard for them to be positive or even joyful in their life, because they're carrying around some stuff. Stuff like stories of deficiency and lack, sometimes really serious trauma from childhood, sometimes just a really negative feeling about themselves and about life, or at least a general dissatisfaction and unhappiness. So when you take somebody like that, who has this programmed mind to think negatively or to feel this ongoing sense of lack, and you try to tell them to be positive or have a positive intention in their life, it's like swimming upstream. If it can feel next to impossible to sort of just replace a negative belief system with a positive one, because the negative belief system or the story, a feeling of lack or deficiency, has been with them for so long, often since childhood. It's an old habit. And so it's not easily substituted by just a few positive thinking strategies or exercises. I think that when you do the kind of work we do at the center, what happens is that your life becomes simpler and more joyful and innocent, so that you can actually create wonderful things in your life. A lot of possibilities can open up, and you can lead a life that's happy and feel a sense of well-being, and really experience a lot of transformation in your relationships, just being more easeful with people, more relaxed, more open, more loving, more compassionate. All that stuff can happen that we normally label as positive, but we don't lead with that. We don't try to get you to be positive. We don't try to get you to think good thoughts. What we do is we question what it is that you brought to the center. Now, if you're at the Kilby Center or thinking of coming, chances are Your life is not right now a bowl of cherries. You're probably not at the high end or the high on the scale of happiness. You're probably not at a 10. You're probably much lower. Many of you are dealing with addictions, some really severe, where you drink or eat constantly. Some of you are experiencing what you would call depression, high anxiety. And so we know that you come with that baggage. What we don't want to do is we don't want to overlook that in you. We don't want to bypass that. And therefore we don't want to just simply substitute that belief system with a positive one. What we want to do is go deeply into the patterns of thought, feeling, and sensation that you're bringing to us. You know, whether it's childhood trauma, depression, anxiety, addiction. We want to go through it and release it instead of trying to substitute it with a positive scheme. Again, this issue of substitution is really important because I think that a lot of people in the self-help industry and even in the recovery industry believe that you can fundamentally just substitute a negative way of thinking or feeling about life with a positive one, as if it's just like replacing X with Y. And I find that to be really problematic. Let me tell you a story of a friend of mine who tried all sorts of therapy. He was deeply depressed, went to many kinds of therapy, read many books, was in the 12-step program for many years. Nothing, absolutely nothing, could lift his depression. And the more that he was around people who tried to say to him, you just need to have hope, or you just need to change your negative beliefs into positive beliefs, the more that people said that to him, essentially the more depressed he became. Because he was unable to simply put aside the negative thinking and the negative feelings and just replace them. It's a lot like, trying to replace one drug for another. In many ways, it doesn't really heal us deeply to do that kind of substitution. And oftentimes it doesn't work. And I'll tell you another story, just so that you know why we don't approach it that way. Because it's important to know that. A guy contacted me once and he said that he had been involved in a spiritual program that had tried to tell him to avoid and distract himself from any kind of negative thoughts or feelings and to cultivate only the positive thoughts and feelings. And he said that he became really, really spiritually sick as a result of that, because there was a lot of self-judgment that he was placing on himself. Because whenever he had a negative thought or a negative emotion, there was a resistance against it, a self-judgment, and then he was made to feel bad about himself, not only by himself, but by all the other people in the program. So he really characterized it as being sick. What I think is that we can't go around our suffering. We can't make an end run around it. We have to move through it to see its emptiness. To see that what we've taken to be our worldview and self-view is empty. It's illusory. And so it's like, once you really see the empty nature of your beliefs about yourself and other people, to really see them as illusory, it's like they just begin to clear away. And then in the clearing away, you are essentially present. Which means you're here and awake now to the moment in its freshness, without the story of past and the feeling of past weighing heavily on you. And so that's when you can start to just feel more positive, because you're not carrying the baggage around. You start to be able to open up to a new expression in your life, like new possibilities. If you look at the science behind it, neuroplasticity, for example, they'll tell you that we learn how to suffer. We learn it from a very early age. For example, we develop stories of deficiency. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm unlovable. I'm unsafe. I'm broken. Whatever. We learn that usually from childhood relationships with our parents or peers. And we carry that over in time so that literally pathways get created, so that the worldview that we see from our eyes and that we feel with our hands and that we hear and that we think, and all of that is kind of a long-standing habit that we carry over, and we actually create pathways in our brains that reinforce and help us see in every moment that there's someone here who's deficient. There's someone here who's unworthy. So our brains learn how to suffer, and they carry that over in time. What happens with this work is that we undo those stories. We free you from those stories about self and other and world that have this strong negative charge to them, so that the pathways are literally changed in your brain so that something new can arise. And what I mean by something new, it just means that negative pathway has been changed and you're present, you're here with us, awake to the moment. And then you can live your life from that awareness, from that present moment awareness. And then you essentially change the way that you perceive your reality, which means you might find that something that you didn't know you wanted to do starts to surface. Like you get a call from your heart to start helping other people, or you find this deep desire to create art, or you find that your real passion is architecture or marketing. But now you're not coming from that, all the baggage of the past. You're able to move into your life differently, without those stories of deficiency and lack, without the depression, without the addiction and the anxiety. So we think and we believe, and science tells us, that the brain actually changes through this work. And when the brain changes, our experience of ourselves and of others and of life changes. So before we get into more of the understanding of what we're doing here at the center, I want to say this. Here at the center, we don't really say, why do I suffer? We ask, how do I suffer? And there's a really fundamental difference between those two questions. Why do I suffer? Well, each of us has a different story. So I could say the reason that I've suffered was because in 6th grade I was bullied. I was made to feel alienated and isolated, and I grew up gay, so therefore that's why I suffer. So we each have a different story, and your story is going to be different. You might say the reason that I suffer is because my dad treated me a certain way, or I've never found the love of my life, or I lost my brother 10 years ago and I've never recovered, or I was diagnosed with cancer and I was never able to fully deal with it, and I'm suffering now. So the why is different for all of us, but the how is the same for all of us. How we suffer is because of what we call the Velcro effect. So how is literally a how. It means, how do I suffer right now? It means I believe certain thoughts that are arising in the moment, and thoughts are either words or mental pictures. And those words or mental pictures usually are about me. They're very often negative. They're quite often about a sense of myself being deficient, for example. And those words or pictures are velcroed or stuck to emotions and sensations in the body. So it's literally like Velcro. It's like the words or pictures are stuck to the emotions and sensations like that. So that's how we suffer. We suffer because of the Velcro effect. Now let me give you an example of that. I want you to look at a picture in your mind's eye of a raccoon walking through the woods. Now, are you suffering? As you think about or look at the picture of the raccoon walking through the woods, are you presently suffering because of that thought? It means, are you emotionally upset about it? Does it rack your body with anxiety or sadness or guilt or shame? The chances are no. And it's not just because it's a raccoon in the picture. Really, the reason that you don't suffer is because there is no strong emotional or sensory charge. There's no strong emotion or sensation velcroed to the picture of the raccoon. In other words, you feel quite neutral about it, or you might even feel sort of warm and fuzzy, but you don't feel any strong negative charge on it. Now I want you to look at a mental picture of a time in your life which was deeply troubling for you. For example, maybe a traumatic event, or an argument that you had with someone that you loved very much. And I want you just to think about that for a second, or look at the picture and notice how that feels different. And to know that, you have to feel into the inner space of the chest, stomach, throat, and notice that there's energy there that you might label as guilt, sadness, anxiety, anger, whatever, but you feel something. So that's the emotion or the sensation in the body, so to speak, that's velcroed or stuck to those particular words or pictures in the thought stream. That's how you suffer. So the why is different for each of us. The why just means I suffer because my words and pictures tell me this about myself. And you suffer, the why, the reason that you suffer is different. You have words or pictures that tell you other things about yourself and your life. The why do I suffer is different for everybody, but the how do I suffer is the same for all of us. We all suffer as a result of the words and pictures that we think or emphasize that carry with them a corresponding energy in the body, emotion or sensation that's stuck to those words or pictures. So if this is how we suffer, then how we begin to experience freedom from the suffering is like this. Which means literally, in a literal sense, pulling apart the words and pictures from the energy. And then when the words or pictures are pulled apart from the energy, the suffering releases. The suffering only happens, this is the how, the suffering happens when words or pictures stuck to energy. Freedom from suffering happens when the words or pictures are taken off the energy. Now, a scientist that knows about neuroplasticity would probably tell you that as you do that with the stories of suffering in your life, the brain pathways probably change. There's literally brain changes happening. So we only concentrate on the how here. Now we want to, when you come to the Kilby Center, we want to honor the particular story that you bring to us, because we know that some of you have been deeply traumatized as children by sexual abuse or some other traumatic event. Some of you didn't have a really, really strong traumatic event, but because of some relationships in your life, you've suffered for that reason. Some of you come to the center because you're very addicted to a substance or an activity. Some come to the center because they're depressed. Some come to the center because of PTSD or anxiety-like thoughts and feelings that plague them. Maybe you came to the center because some doctor somewhere diagnosed you with a condition and you haven't really been able to get help for that through medications or other therapies, and so you're here. But the point is, we don't care about why you're here. We care that you are here. And what we're going to do with the story is we're going to honor it. In other words, we're going to help you transform by actually meeting you where you are. We're going to go through the words and pictures and emotions and sensations of your particular story for the purpose of undoing the Velcro effect. What I mean by honoring the story does not mean we're going to encourage you to tell the story over and over again. In fact, you will not find us doing that here. Sometimes when you're with us working, you'll find that we're spending time together in sometimes short, sometimes long periods of silence, like this. Other times we may get you to tell part of the story, just a part of it, so that we can get you to see the words and the pictures and to feel the emotions and sensations of that story for the purpose of undoing that Velcro effect. And we do that with specific ways. We do that with the living inquiries. We do that through resting and allowing the words and pictures and feelings to be as they are. Which, when you see words and pictures directly, when you hear the words and you see the picture, they begin to fade away just by seeing them and allowing them. And as they fade away, you can feel the emotion or sensation without any words on it, without any pictures. And that sort of direct, mindful attention, it's very gentle. Literally that by itself undoes the Velcro effect. We have other ways. Maybe it's meditation, maybe yoga, faster EFT. Different ways that we do it. But the whole purpose is to relieve the suffering. The one thing that I want to talk about is if you really get it in your mind, first in your mind, why you're here. That's a question that we ask people quite often is, why are you here? Why did you come to the Kiloby Center? And if you notice, you could have a lot of answers, but one of your answers really is, because the way that I've been living is not working. The way that I've been with my experience, or I've experienced myself and others in the world, is not working. If it were working, you wouldn't be at the Kiloby Center. What do I mean by working? I mean that the way that you're experiencing words, pictures, sensations, and emotions, which means you're identifying with them. In a sense, you think that you are the words, the pictures, the emotions, and the sensations. That kind of experience creates suffering. It also is responsible for addiction, depression, and anxiety. So it's not working in the sense that it continues to give you the same thing. That Velcro effect and that identifying with those elements continues to give you addiction. It continues to lead you to the wine every night, or to the computer for pornography, or to the food. Or if you came for anxiety, identifying with the words, the pictures, the emotions, and the sensations continues to give you anxiety on a daily basis, or it continues to make you feel depressed. It continues to keep you feeling like you're in the box of post-traumatic stress disorder or obsessive compulsive disorder. It's not working. In other words, it's not efficient. It doesn't allow you to move and be in the world in the freest way. It's self-centered in the sense that the focus is often on yourself and your problems. It's not bringing freedom in your life. It's not making you feel joyful or peaceful. It's not giving you a sense of being at rest and at ease with everything as it is in the moment. It's not working. So you have to, in some sense, there has to be this sort of rigorous self-honesty when you begin working with us to sort of admit that the way that you've been experiencing words, pictures, emotions, and sensations isn't working. You see, because if you think it's still working, you'll go back to identifying with it. And you won't necessarily be able to bring in the kind of looking and the tools that we're going to introduce to you. Because on some level your mind thinks that I just need to go back to identifying with those things and following and thinking about every one of those thoughts about myself. So in some sense, when you turn off this video and for the rest of the next couple of hours, I really want you to be quiet, and I want you to notice how the way that you've been identifying, which means actually believing that you are these words, that these words are true about you, or thinking that that picture in your mind that you're looking at is really you, or that it is really threatening, or that it is really making you want to drink alcohol, that way of experiencing those words and pictures, bodily energies, just has not been working. It's giving you the same suffering. And there's a saying that insanity is repeating the same mistakes, expecting different results. Once you really come to see and you really feel it in your, not just your mind, but you get it in your entire experience that it's not working, then a new possibility arises, and that's where this work comes in. So what is this new possibility? Stated in one word, it's just presence. And that really doesn't say much, does it? But presence is the ongoing experience of being aware and naturally allowing of what is. So it's being aware, but also a natural allowing, full allowance of everything as it is. So what do we mean by that? By everything, really, we don't mean external objects. It's not like being present means you walk into a room and you say, my mother-in-law is really nosy, but I accept her as she is. My friend Carol talks too much, but I accept her as she is. It's not like that. That's the kind of acceptance that other programs talk about. We're talking about really a deeper kind of acceptance, which means to start seeing that the way that you experience yourself and other people and situations and events is through words, pictures, feelings, and sensations. That's how you know objects in the world. So you only know your mother-in-law by the words, pictures, feelings, and sensations that paint her a certain way. In a sense, there is no objective mother-in-law. There's only the kind of mother-in-law or the mother-in-law that your words, pictures, feelings, and sensations paint in any given moment. The same is true for yourself, your sense of self. There isn't an objective self there. In other words, you're not just a victim. We sometimes say things with a lot of certainty, like, well, I'm an attorney, and that's what I am. And I've always felt like the black sheep in the family. Nobody really loved me or treated me fairly in the family. And we say it with like a firm conviction, as if that's just who we are. As if it's not only not being examined, but it's not even something that you can examine. It's just true. It's real. How can you accept yourself when you take yourself to be something like that? How does one, people say often, I have a lot of, I'm not good enough. I've never been good enough, but I'm learning to accept that part of myself. I'm like, how do you do that? If that's not really who you are to begin with, if you're not in fact a person who's not good enough, that's not who you are, why are you trying to accept something that you're not? And how do you do that? So the point is we're not trying to just accept objects and people the way that we perceive them. We actually want to investigate how we perceive them in the first place. And what I mean is, how do I know I'm a black sheep in the family? How do I know that? I know it because there's a mental picture, which is a memory of the way that my father used to look at me. So that's how I know I'm a black sheep, by that picture. Without that picture, I don't know I am. Or maybe I know it also through the words black sheep. So I've got then the mental picture of that grimace on my father's face. And I've got the word black sheep that I hear in the voice in my head. And then with that, I get the Velcro effect. I get the feeling that goes with that feels awful. And that's how I know that I'm the black sheep. So the deeper kind of acceptance I'm talking about is not just saying I'm a black sheep and then trying to accept that. It's actually a deeper sort of examination of whether that's who I am at all. Like, is that who I am? And how do we examine it with this work? One way that we do it is with the living inquiries, and specifically the unfindable inquiry, which is we ask you to see if you can actually find that person that you think that you are. So we may have you look at the picture of the grimace of your dad's face, and we may say, is that picture in fact you? Is that you, the black sheep? And then if you feel something with it, you say yes. And so we let that picture just be as it is until it just naturally dissolves. It's like accepting it. That's the allowance part. You just allow it to be there without trying to change it or get rid of it or fix it. You're just aware gently of it, and it relaxes. And then there's that feeling left by itself. But now it doesn't have a picture on it. We may ask you just to feel that with quiet presence. Just the feeling without any words on it. Just the feeling without a picture on it. You may say, is that feeling by itself the black sheep? And because you've taken the words and pictures off of it, it just feels like a feeling, and then it's allowed to be. This is the allowance, the acceptance, is to allow that feeling to be as it is. And then it too begins to relax. So then we take you through the words and pictures and feelings, every one of them that come up around the story about being a black sheep, in this place where you're just resting and allowing it all to be as it is, and you're just looking, and we see if you can find the black sheep. And after a while you realize you can't find the black sheep. It's literally unfindable. You know why? Because it's not you. It was never you. And this is why you can't, this is why it's only a surface level acceptance to say, I'm the black sheep in the family and I accept that. That's only surface level acceptance. What we want to do is relax, rest in the moment, and just be aware of everything that tells you that you're a black sheep, all the words, pictures, energies. Let them be as they are, and notice how they dissolve into presence, and notice that within that you can't actually find the black sheep. You only find the words, or you only find that picture, you only find that feeling. You can't find the actual black sheep, or victim, or the one who's not lovable. This is what we mean by a deep and radical acceptance of life, is to begin looking, and this is a big part of this work, is to shift from thinking to looking. This is a big part of the work. In the sense, if you don't get this little piece, this work would be really, really confusing for you, and difficult and challenging. But here's what I mean. Let's say that I walk around on the earth and I feel like someone who's just fundamentally unlovable. And I don't know why I feel that way, but I can just say I always have felt that way. And let's just say that there's an old girlfriend. The memory of her is somewhere unconscious. Now, unconscious is not some woo-woo terminology. It just means unconscious, not seen, not conscious. I don't see the memory. I don't look at it, but it's there. And it sort of hovers in my experience and has a sort of feeling with it. Maybe there's a few other memories like that, but they're hidden from view, right? So it's like this. I'm walking around and I just think I'm unlovable. And so people come up to me and we start to talk, and I start to almost like give off that vibe that I'm unlovable. It's like something about the way that I look, or my facial expressions, or the feeling of sadness is felt by other people. You know how we feel the energy of other people. Or maybe it's the story that I tell. Maybe I have a very sad, unlovable story, and I like to tell it a lot to you, or anybody who will listen, to feel pity or to get something. Just to be recognized as somebody, even if it's the one who's unlovable. And all the while, I'm not looking at any of those memories or any of those words. I'm not really, truly feeling the feeling of the unlovability. It's all unconscious. It's all I'm actually just thinking it. In other words, I'm thinking the words and I'm spouting out the words. I'm unlovable. My girlfriend broke up with me. No one has ever loved me, and you won't love me either. That's the dialogue. So shifting from thinking to looking is monumentally important in this work. And it's just a matter of doing this. Let's say this is the picture of the breakup with the girlfriend. It's a matter of having it there and then just taking a look at it. Now I can see the picture of her face. And I feel that feeling with it. But I'm not thinking the thought and telling the story about her. I'm actually seeing the picture. And letting it be as it is. And letting it, because it's now being made conscious, it can't survive. Nothing that you look at can truly survive anymore. It has to, by its own nature, relax back into the presence. And I've made it conscious. I'm now looking at it, watching it dissolve. And maybe there's another word, some words back here that say, well, I am unlovable. Even though that picture dissolved, I'm unlovable. But I'm not conscious of it. I just say it to myself. I go around thinking it and conveying it in one way or another to other people. So the shift in this work is, instead of just thinking the thought, I'm unlovable, or I'm an awful person, I become aware of the thought, which means I hear the voice in the mind. I literally hear it from almost a dispassionate, non-judgmental hearing or listening, from presence. I hear it, and now it's conscious. It just means it's being heard. Instead of being thought, like, oh, I'm unlovable, now I hear the thought, and in hearing it, it can be allowed to come to rest. Or maybe I see the words, I'm unlovable, and I look at those words, and they come to rest. And the sunlight's in my eyes here a little bit, so I want to make sure you can see me okay. So, shifting from thinking to looking is really important. Which just means, instead of thinking about your life all the time, thinking I'm like this, or thinking I'm like that, and telling it, we shift to looking and being aware of pictures, being aware of words, whether we see them or hear them, and resting while we're listening or looking at that, just resting, being conscious of things. That's monumental in this work. Another part of it is that if you don't become aware of the feelings and sensations that go with the words, it's really hard to do this work. What does it mean to be aware of emotions? Some people say things like, I feel angry. But they're still thinking about the anger. They have a label for the feeling. I feel anger. That's not what I mean by feeling an emotion directly. To feel an emotion directly is to feel it without words, in a sort of dead quietness, like a very, very quiet presence that has no words for it, and to feel into it and let it be as it is until it relaxes. Just being very quiet with everything that comes through your body. Whenever you feel an emotion or a sensation, it's just to relax. Take a brief moment of resting without thought. Let it be felt until it too naturally comes to rest. That's to make things conscious. In other words, a feeling wasn't conscious, it wasn't seen or felt. I was thinking about it again. I am angry. That's thinking. To shift from thinking to looking, which in this case is feeling, without the words on it, without the thoughts. That's a really important shift. So play with that a lot, shifting from thinking to being aware of thoughts. To shift from thinking about how you feel to relaxing the thoughts and just feeling, bringing your attention into the felt energy without words on it. And all of that is talked about in the Natural Rest book. It's talked about every day at the center. It's a part of every inquiry that we do. So you're going to be immersed in that kind of looking and resting all the time, because this is what undoes the Velcro effect. This is what gets us free of the suffering that we brought to the center. I want to talk about trauma a little bit there's some of you, people often come to the center and we don't know that they're suffering, that they had a traumatic event in their childhood, because either they didn't want to tell us, or they didn't think of it as really important, or whatever. We want you to be really, really honest with us in terms of what has happened to you when you were a child. Sometimes things happen when we're children, but we don't have the language to communicate what happened to us, and we don't know how to cope with the overwhelming feelings that came about, or that could have come about during that event. Let's say we were sexually molested at a very young age. We didn't know how to process that, for example, or maybe a parent died. We had no way of processing that. No one taught us how to process it healthily. So instead, what happened is that we unconsciously repressed some of those feelings, or a lot of those feelings. And we tucked them away. It's like those feelings were not safe to feel at that time. And so we can even create a pattern of suppressing those feelings, of burying them deep down in our bodies. So our bodies, by the time we're older in adulthood, often feel tight and dense, especially in certain areas like the stomach, or the chest, or the throat, the pelvic area, because it's a lifetime of just sort of repressing our emotions. We live in a culture where men aren't supposed to cry, that women are supposed to act a certain way, that children aren't supposed to be afraid. When a child is afraid of the boogeyman under the bed, we don't help them sit and feel the fear and be aware of it and let it release naturally. We tell them there's no boogeyman there. So we don't teach children how to deal with emotion. So if something really traumatic happens, the child doesn't know how to deal with that emotionally. It doesn't have the language to process what's happening to them. So this creates something in our experience which can affect us for the rest of our lives. Many people who come with addictions come with trauma in their background. So what does that mean? I still have the light in my eyes, so please excuse me as I move around here so you can see me. It means that we can't help you with the present addiction, or the present anxiety, or the present depression, without dealing with this trauma, without dealing with what happened to you as a child, or as a young adult, or even early adulthood. Now, we don't deal with it through therapy. We don't take you through the event and have you tell the story over and over again. What we do is we bring up the words and the pictures, the feelings and the sensation. We allow those to come up by just beginning to talk about them a little bit, and then we have you be aware of those words and pictures and feelings and sensations. And then in inquiry, we ask certain questions about those. But what happens is we just undo the Velcro effect, so that the memory of the abuse that comes in words and pictures, as we work with that more and more, and the Velcro effect is undone, which means the emotions and sensations that are attached to it are separated from the words and pictures, we get to a place that when you have those memories, after you've worked with this for a while, when you have those memories of the event, you no longer get the emotional response. Precisely because we've taken you deeply into the feeling and helped you feel it without the memories on it, without the words and pictures. And all of it is about resting in presence. All of it. So while you're here, read the Natural Rest for Addiction book. Keep it with you, read it every day, because it's repeating over and over again how resting is so important in this work. Rest means to do nothing with a picture other than see it. Resting means to do nothing with words that you hear and the voice in your mind other than hear them. Resting means to do nothing with a feeling other than to feel it quietly without words and pictures. Rest is doing nothing. And in that doing nothing, things are naturally allowed to arise and fall like that, so that they don't arise and get stuck in the Velcro effect. Every aspect of what we do is about undoing the Velcro effect. And the more that's undone, the less there's emotional energy with different words and pictures. Less emotional energy with the words and pictures just means that words and pictures can arise freely, dissolve freely, back into presence. Freedom from suffering. That just means you're more here. Be here now, right? That just means you're not stuck in the past so much. You're not worried about the future so much. You're just here, aware, resting, allowing everything to be as it is. Why is that so important with addiction? For example, what is addiction other than engaging in a substance or activity repeatedly or compulsively in order to avoid some uncomfortable feeling or other sensation, and in a manner that isn't needed for survival? So what I mean is, you don't need wine to survive. You don't need cocaine to survive. You don't actually need cake. And most of the things people are addicted to, they don't need in order to survive. And a lot of the things that we're addicted to, we do those compulsively. Like, we don't have a choice, I have to do it. Or we do it repeatedly, every day, or we binge on it. And we do that to avoid having to feel something that's uncomfortable in our bodies. So have you ever heard the term, I eat my feelings, right? Someone's eating a bag of cookies, they're eating their feelings away, they're trying to medicate how they feel, or cover it up, or numb it out. Same with alcohol, same with so many others. Same with spiritual seeking. Often spiritual seekers are trying to find some future state or future experience that will somehow numb out the pain or medicate the pain that they feel. So this entire approach is about no longer avoiding. What do we mean by no longer avoiding? We're back to resting and allowing everything to be as it is. Everything means seeing pictures, doing nothing with them, letting them be as they are, coming and going in presence. Hearing the voice in the head, doing nothing with it. And then just noticing when there's a feeling or sensation with a thought, and then feeling into the sensation or emotion without words or pictures on it, letting it be as it is until it naturally dissolves. So if addiction is always about trying to find something in order to avoid having to feel something, then recovery is about resting and allowing every feeling and sensation, word and picture, to be as it is, as a temporary arising and falling in presence. The more that we do that, the more we recognize that there's a stable presence here that is already stable, that already has built into it a sense of well-being and peace and freshness about life. A sense that everything is okay. That's the point, right? Same applies for depression and anxiety. Depression and anxiety just simply is the same way. We rest and allow. Also, we're going to do a lot of inquiry while you're here. And other things like faster EFT, meditation. The one thing that I want you to know, again, is not only is the Kilby Center not about entertaining you, but we're going to be doing deep work. There are going to be times when you're going to feel probably very intense emotions. You may cry, and you're fully free to cry. You may get angry. You may get angry at the facilitators. You may get angry at me. You may feel sad for half a day or longer. You may be scared. You might feel anxious or even unsafe around certain facilitators. All of that is a natural part of this process. Whenever we stop avoiding feelings and we start to feel them, guess what? We feel them. So when you start feeling like this is too much, I'm depressed today, I'm sad, I'm angry, on some level be grateful, because that means that this work is working. Now, even though it's uncomfortable, it's working. What does that mean? Is that when that stuff comes up, we want to help you rest with it and let it be as it is. And the more you rest with it, doing nothing with the feeling, but letting it be without words and pictures, the more that it passes through. Or we may help you with it by taking you through an inquiry, which undoes the Velcro effect. But I just want you to know, everybody here, everybody that comes here experiences pain, experiences fear or anxiety or anger, and that we consider that to be a good thing, because that's how we can work. We can move through that instead of trying to avoid it or go around it. The last few things I want to say have to do with your philosophy or your attitude about this work. You know, there's a saying that says, you give a man fish and he eats for a day, teach a man to fish and he eats for a lifetime. That's really sort of the motto of what we're doing here. This is not about you coming to the Kilby Center and getting fixed, and then you never have to be aware or conscious for the rest of your life. You can just come back and say, or you can say to people, I once went to the Kilby Center, they did some processes on me, and then I was fixed. That's neither realistic nor is it healthy to think of this kind of transformative work that way. It's not about fixing. We live in a culture in which we take a pill for this particular condition, or we eat something or do something, we get an immediate fix, and we think, oh, it's over now. The kind of work that we're doing here is to help you be more conscious, more aware of the words and pictures and feelings, and more restful and allowing of all of that. So that's an ongoing thing. It's not work, it's rest. It's not like we're trying to give you something that you have to do for the rest of your life. We're helping you relax in the moment as it is and allow everything to come and go freely. The point I'm trying to make is that we're not doing processes on you that just simply fix you. We want to teach you how to wake up that aspect of yourself that's just present, that's here and aware, that's not in a story about who you are. You're just here, aware, awake, peaceful, and at rest. That's what we want to give to you. But we can't just give it to you, like put it in a bottle or do a process with you and then now you have it. We want to teach you how to fish. So we want to teach you how in every moment to rest, letting everything be as it is, words, pictures, emotions, and then sometimes inquiring into those things. But the point is, we want to teach you how to look from your own side. We don't want to fix you as facilitators or psychologists from the outside trying to fix you. We want you to look, again, shifting from thinking to looking from within your own experience, so that just the looking itself frees you from identifying with the words, pictures. So what we would say to you is that this is really important. Listen, when you go home at night, don't treat it as, okay, I did my day at the center, now I'm done. We want you to bring the tools and the practices in during the night when you're at the sober living facility or the hotel or the guest house. We want you to rest at night and notice words and pictures. Inquire when necessary, or do tapping when necessary. We want you to incorporate this kind of looking during lunches and before the center in the morning and at night, so that you are taught how to fish. So that when you leave the center, in other words, whenever that is, when you leave the center completely and you go back to wherever you live, you have learned how to fish, and you are more aware and awake to what is, and resting and allowing everything to be as it is, and no longer identifying or identifying less with the thoughts that come by, the feelings that move through you. This is a call to you to wake up. That's what it's about. It's waking up and seeing that who you've taken yourself to be is not who you are. It's a thought or a set of thoughts. And to get you to look from that place within yourself that's just aware, that can see thoughts, that can hear thoughts, that can feel feelings, and to let that be your practice throughout your life in every moment. This is an ongoing thing, because awakening is like that. Awakening is not a fix. It's not something that you do or that happens to you, and then you go back into your sleep, back into your life asleep, back into the old habits and mind patterns. It's to be awake to what is moment by moment. So it's a lifelong thing, but it's not effort, it's rest. It's not trying to get somewhere down the road, it's resting in the here and now and allowing everything to be. The more that you rest, and the more that you notice words and pictures, and the more that you stop and just feel feelings without thoughts on them, the more natural that becomes, and it no longer feels like a practice. It feels like your natural way of experiencing life. And that's something that once it's deeply into your system, that restfulness and that deep acceptance of everything, and the seeing that your identity, whoever you thought you were, is not really who you are, it's transparent, it's not real. That is so deeply transformative that it can never be revoked from you. Because it's not an experience that we're giving you, it's not a fix that we do for you, it's an awakening that happens within your experience. So we want you to take very seriously your off time. When we say at the end of the day, take some time tonight and rest, do a little inquiry, that's what we want you to do. If you have any questions about anything that I've said in this video, take them to the group when you meet in group and ask me, or ask any of the other facilitators. Ask us if any part of this video that was unclear or something that you're confused about. Usually just asking the question, we can clear it up very easy. The thing that you can do is also watch this video again if you just need to hear it again, or read the book. The more that you immerse yourself in the mental understanding of why we do this work, the more that you're going to get it into your experience, and it's going to be transformative for you.